Would you like your watercolours to look like this and have a look of spontaneity and look like they were painted confidently? Well, on this video I'm going to show you how we can do this. I'm going to show you how I decide what to paint, how I may crop my photo to get the right scene, how to figure out a plan, which is very important, that you need to know what you're doing when you start your painting, that it may look confident and it was just done in a dash, but I can assure you most masterpieces were well thought out and planned down to the last detail. And then we will do the final painting, and throughout the painting I may have to change my plan, but that's where the spontaneity comes in and a little bit of magic. So armed with all the preparation and the knowledge that we're going to do first, we'll be able to tackle the main painting and hopefully have success. So let's go. So we've got a photo here of Brantôme in the Dordogne in France. So we'll have a little look around the photo, see what is of interest. So the lantern there and the shadow coming across, and obviously we've got a couple of figures, and that bright red t-shirt is going to look great against the green railing there. So let's crop in and see if we can make it a little bit more pleasing to the eye, the composition. And we can make more of this tall building by having a ratio that is quite tall and not so wide. So there's our composition. So what we'll need to do now is to do some tonal sketches, because I quite like the idea of perhaps putting a shadow across the front building, but the focal point is going to be the figure here and perhaps that lantern. So let's do some work to try and figure it out. Okay, so this is not the final painting, this is just a bit of prep work. So I shall do some little sketches, thumbnail sketches, and we'll use a bit of watercolour to make it easy for you to see that you could do this in pencil. So I'm not doing any detail, I'm just going to show where the buildings are and just test out a few ideas. That's all I'm doing. So there we go, there's the railing going across here. So that's kind of the detail you do on a thumbnail sketch, if anything. You don't even need to put all the windows in, it doesn't matter. So there's going to be our lantern. So what's the purpose on this little thumbnail sketch is I want to know how will it work with the shadow on the front of the building if we decide to do that. So let's put the sky in here, and also this is a way to test how am I actually going to paint it and what colours to use. I can have a little test. Do I want to go for the colours that are kind of there, or do I want to treat it slightly differently? So let's throw the shadow across. So we've kind of got a shadow, let's make it more blue, going across here, and we're kind of catching half the lantern there, which is quite nice. And then we'll just suggest where the figures are going to be, just to test the idea out. So my idea was, obviously we're going to have a shadow under the eaves there, but what if we threw a shadow across here? Now, how would that work? Now that's one idea, and these are in shadow, these buildings here, and then there's some chimneys and things like that. But this is a thumbnail, this is not the painting, this is purely discovery. So you don't need to do any of the detail I'm doing here, but I just can't help myself sometimes. So I think that makes it a little bit more interesting by having a shadow across the front. So let's try out another idea. So again, we're just looking at the shape, just to try some ideas. So window, window. So how would it work if maybe we approached it slightly differently? So this has perhaps got a softer feel to it. There's a shadow down there. Just suggest some of those windows, and then we'll have the, let's test out the idea with the green railing and the figures there. See if it's going to look as good as we hope with the there's a little bit of green down here. We've got the green there. There's the figure. You know, and this is a thumbnail, so I don't need to actually do detailed figures. I'm just looking at what the colour is going to look like. So the green and the red looks good, but I think definitely the shadows improve the drama to the scene. So let's just pull that shadow across here. So maybe we could, another way we could have a shadow across here is maybe a tree across the way. And I recently did a demo of a townhouse that had a tree casting a shadow across. Again, let's just dry that, and let's put the red figure in here, and let's just put the lantern in red as it is in the photograph. So what if we did the lantern in black? Would that look better? You know, that we don't have to stick to the photograph. You know, does that red compete with that red? So let's just, I think the black possibly looks better. So I don't like the shadow on this with the dappled sunlight. I prefer the more sort of the straight edge. Maybe it because of the tallness of the building, maybe, but I think that looks better. But I think having the red lantern detracts away from the red figure, so I think we'll have the lantern black and have the figure in red, and we'll go with this shadow. So also I think I quite like the brightness here of the front of the house, rather than doing the first wash over the whole lot, you know, with quite a dark tone yellow. But that creates a softer feel. But I think we'll go for more drama like this one here. So this is our plan. So we've got an idea what we're doing now. So let's have a go at the main painting. So the paper here is Saunders and Waterford 140 pound knot. So it's a fairly good thickness paper, and it's got a little bit of texture. So this is 7.5 inches by 11 inches. So it's a slightly not as tall as the photograph, but I'll see if I can, you know, adjust the drawing to fit it in here. Maybe just have a little bit less sky. So I'll have the building up here. So I shall press fairly hard so you can see. But what I'm going to try and do is make a loose drawing, because if I have a tight drawing, my painting will be tight. So let's try my best. And one way to, you know, have a loose drawing is just don't take your pencil off the paper. You know, obviously I am taking it off, but you know, try and keep it on the paper and just move your way around the drawing, and you'll be surprised, you know, how that can, you know, make things a little bit more loose and interesting. And notice that I didn't make the windows dead square. I know all perfect, obviously they're not rectangle, but you know, we're not looking for a photograph here. We're looking for a loose watercolor that hopefully is going to capture the scene. There's the bit of detail there, but we'll use the paintbrush to make that detail. So we've got a little bit of perspective going on here, so just do the best we can with that. And there's the path, and And because it's a loose watercolour, you know, we'll get away with, you know, some perspective if it's not quite right. So that kind of needs to. So compositioning, we've got a bit of a lead in here. I'm not going to worry about the detail down here, that we'll just suggest some of that. So we've got a roof there, which is casting some shadows, a bit of a shadow under there, and then we'll have a nice dark here, and then that roof then takes us off here, and then we've got other buildings going off down there. So let's bring that over here a bit more. So we've got another window there, another chimney pot here, some aerials and things, another chimney there. So we've got the lovely ornate, you know, and I'll try not to make that too tight, but it'll be done with the brush off. It's going to be, we've decided it's going to be dark, so that's fine if I do it in pencil, just to sort of show you where it is. And then we've got a figure here, so we've got his head there, and we'll want to give the illusion that they're walking. So I'm not going to worry about doing their feet and things, because I want to add movement into the scene. And then we've got this shadow that's going to come across here and down here, and suggest a bit of perspective there. And these windows just need to be suggested because they're kind of out of the scene. So we're nearly there. I think a bit of a vertical there. It's good. So we decided a shadow falling across here, like so. Maybe, do we have it higher up? Yeah, I think maybe from there coming down here. But, that may change as we do the painting, but armed with a plan, we've got a lot better chance of success. So that's kind of the process on one of my online workshops. So have a look in the description. There's a link to my website that's got some dates. It'd be great if you can come and join me. And obviously we'll have a chance to talk face to face on the Zoom workshop, so you know, you can ask me questions and so on. So let's try now and paint this nice and loose. So I'm going fairly quickly here, but because I want to get some wet into wet. But I say certainly on my workshops I do try and slow things down a little bit. So there's an aerial here. So the brush I'm using here is an Escoda Perla size 14, and as you can see, it comes to a nice fine point, so I'm able to get these kind of details on. And I'll be trying my best to paint wet into wet and try to retain some of the white of the paper to add sparkle. So I'm just going to use a bit of clean water here. And if you're enjoying this sort of style of painting, this loose method, that I've got a lot of videos on my Patreon page that aren't on YouTube. So have a look at that. So then we've got that shadow under there. I'm just going to put a wash on this building, but going to keep it fairly light in tone because I want the shadow really to be strong and powerful. But you'll see that's running down here. That's great. That's watercolour doing its thing. I'm not going to fight it. Just let it carry on. And bring that down here. Let's do the same over here. Let's get this roof on here while this is still wet. Let's get a bit of mixing on the paper. And that's what I try to do. I try to mix on the paper rather than mix my colour here and then just put it onto the paper. Let's try and get these watercolours to paint themselves. And again, we've got a little shadow under there. And I'm going to paint these windows while this is all wet. Again, because I don't want them to look like they're just stuck on. So let's try and get some nice marks in here. So that's wet, this is dry, so we'll get a good combination of hard and soft edges. And it's just an impression that I'm trying to create here. But I'm not looking to have it too neat and tidy. Let's put that shadow there, that side of the building's in shadow, or it's not getting as much sun. I quite like the brown doors here, so let's suggest those. But that's it, just a suggestion. And while that's wet, let's throw the dark in there. So with watercolour, it's all about timing. It's getting those darks in while the paper's still damp. If you want softness, we probably will want a hard edge there, but I'm using fairly thick paint here, so hopefully we'll be okay. I think I'll wait for that to dry so I'll get a nice crisp hard edge there. But I'll paint the other rooftop here while that's wet here, so I'll get some connection. Again, that's dried enough that it's not going to mix. Back into my chimney colour, which is just a grey, and then we've got aerials and things here, but it's just a suggestion, just adds a little bit of interest. And that's kind of how you work your way across the painting. Just going to put a few darks in here. So to make my dark, I'm just thinking a bit of brown, bit of blue. I'm not, I don't necessarily have a dark paint. I just mix the colours together until I get the tone I'm looking for. Suggest a little bit of something on that roof. And as I did on the other one, let's throw a bit of warmth on this building, but let's keep it fairly light in tone because we want, again, the shadow to take effect. And then it gets a little bit darker and cooler on this side. And just use a bit of water there just to, it disappears off to nothing here because no one's going to be looking there. This is where the centre of focus is. Get the path in there, which leads us in to the painting. So I'm using directional marks here to help lead the eye, and I've added connection here. So we can just suggest some detail of windows. So again, I'm just mixing a bit of a dark paint, but it's not too thick. It's still runs like watercolor, but I haven't got too much water on here because this is damp now, so I need to make sure it doesn't disappear off to nothing. So these windows can just be suggested. That's disappearing off down here. So let's get the sky in. We'll go for a nice blue sky. Let's clean one of these off. So nice, strong, powerful sky. Be careful as I cut around these buildings. But I don't mind having a little bit of white paper to shine through. I should better get away with just painting over those aerials if I'm careful. As long as I don't rework an area again and again, I should be fine. And I don't mind some of these white bits of paper to add sparkle to the scene. I can just add a few bits of detail now this is dried. We need to wait for that to dry to put the shadow in. So put a bit of something on there. So the railing comes up here, and we can try and suggest the decorative design there by painting the gaps in between, something like that. And maybe just splash a bit of water on there. Don't want it too neat and tidy. So let's throw that shadow across here now. Yeah, it's quite dried. So armed with our plan that we did, we should hopefully have success, that it's going to work. So I'm going to mix up enough of what the shadow colour I want to hopefully do it all in one go. And obviously it needs to be the correct thickness, which the only way really to know that is to practice with watercolour, but it's thicker than the first washes I was putting on. So let's just be brave. So we've got, try and keep my hand out of the way so you can see. So the shadow is coming down here. On that building, maybe. Reload the brush and pull that down across here. Let's go across that window. But as long as I don't just connect it to there, and maybe let's just pull that into shadow there. And it's quite nice to leave a little bit to come through. And we can use the shadow to create a highlight on the top of that railing there, and just throw some of that shadow across here maybe. Just take that off the page. And then the other shadow here, which will give us a nice crisp edge there, and connect to that shadow. And then we can use the shadow to cut around those figures. So this is where you need a brush that holds plenty of water, and you know, you're putting plenty of water onto the paper. And maybe we'll just cut around some of those railings, gives the opportunity to get that green in there. And then let's just put that a little bit of shadow on there. So we can put some of the shadow colour under there. So I think this is a good stage to let it dry. Let's put some details in. So the only thing we're lacking now is a little bit of colour, but we certainly have a feel of sunlight here, and I'm glad we went with the shadow like this, that is working well. So we've got this lovely ornate, they're all over France. And again, because it's a loose painting, we don't need to be too exact with it. Just a suggestion that it's there. You can have a dark in here. Just suggest that window there a little bit. Be careful not to overwork any areas. Just a little suggestion. But you know, we can make the light seem stronger by just having a few careful darks. So let's have a go at the figure. We've got this Daniel Smith Pyrrole Red. So the colours I'm using here, they're mainly Rembrandt watercolours, tubes. We've got yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, burnt umber, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, neutral tint. And so that's the Daniel Smith Pyrrole Red. And I've got a bit of white gouache there also. So let's go for, we'll put the red figure here. So he's got this bright t-shirt on there. So I'm using thick paint to describe the figures here. And I think maybe the figure next to him there, a little bit darker. And by not getting too detailed with them, we can hopefully suggest a little bit of movement. The legs can just be, you know, suggested. And then we can just have a look around the scene, you know, what we could do to, you know, what details we need to include. There's a plaque on the side of the house there, that's quite nice. Or maybe it's the name of the road, maybe. Just adds up a little bit of detail. We can throw a shadow across where the figures are. Through there. And let's just put something in there just to get rid of some of that light. So let's have a go at these railings. That was a tool that it was used by the masters. To have a, say, a bright red next to a muted green, and that will make the red look even brighter and more vibrant. So we'll try muting this green a little bit, and let's just suggest these railings. As you can see, it's just a suggestion, not getting into any kind of detail as such. And just use a bit of clean water just to soften those into the background. And we could actually now just suggest a few shadows going across there. I think we could add a little bit of colour. I'm just going to take a bit of white gouache and some of that cerulean blue, and let's put some blue shutters on this house here. Suggest a little bit of something on that window that some light is catching. So I'm just going to take a little bit of white gouache straight from the tube, just add a little bit of raw or yellow ochre into it, and then just put the highlight on the side of the figure there. I've got the highlight on the head where I managed to leave a little bit of white paper, but maybe on that one just to add something there. And be careful with gouache, you don't put it everywhere, but you can, revive it, the painting, where you've not got a little bit of light where you might want some, like on these windows here where there's a little bit of light making its way through there. Just finally, I think I can go a little bit darker on the shadow here on the house, which will just make more of that sunshine there. And that's the tricky part of watercolour, knowing when to stop. But, I think it might be quite nice just to just put a bit of detail across the building there. Just breaks that up a little bit. And what I'll do, so just take this brush here that's got a kind of chiseled edge, and then just run that along in the shadow part, just to lift a little bit of paint out. Quite pleased with this, that we've got a sense of sunlight, that the shadows here add that little bit of drama. We've got the focal point with the lantern and the red of the t-shirt there, and hopefully the red is working well with this complementary green. We had quite a complex area here that we've just dealt with just a few marks and a bit of water added to it. Managed to get a highlight on the top here of the banister that leads us into the painting. But I think by having these little bits of sparkle through the shadow, it just gives it more life. That the sky was quite simply painted, but we've got a bit of granulation in here, which is quite nice. Just adds a bit more atmosphere to the scene. And again, there was a lot of detail in this area, but it wasn't needed, so we've just dealt with it with just a few marks. So compositionally, we've got quite a nice lead in here to the focal point, and then we've got the verticals here, and hopefully, maybe your eye comes back down here, so hopefully we can keep the viewer in the painting. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Let's say I've got more videos like this on my Patreon page, and this is the kind of the work I do on my workshops, but obviously we have a chance to go further into it. So don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think. That's very important. It really helps the channel, obviously for you to give me some feedback, and obviously hopefully I can answer any questions you might have. So good luck if you decide to give it a go, and I'll see you on the next demo.